your time. The four folks that are unmuted today are myself, Nathan Wildfire. I'm with the Missing Middle Housing Fund, as well as Amy Snyder, who has done a lot of the legwork to set up this webinar. Thank you, Amy. We also have Abisha Stone from SEDCOR, our community partner in Yamhill County, who also serves Polk and Marion County, helping to drive economic development and prosperity across that 3-county region, as well as Quang Truong at UrbanForm, who is our technology partner on this project, and created the technology and the company that brought this sort of change to the geography we're going to talk about today. Functionally, what we're here to do is to talk about the project that we all did together in Yamhill County and go over some of the best practices, digitized zoning, and what follows, and answer your questions. That's really what we're here to do. The project is a first of its kind partnership between public and private and nonprofit sectors to create an online zoning navigation tool that covers all 41,000 plus parcels in all 11 jurisdictions in Yamhill County. The goal was to improve access to zoning regulations and information for any parcel in the entire county and save time. Just an understanding and having better transparency over what you can and cannot do on different parcels across the county, and thus, in theory, improve permit application quality and reduce time. It's also a fast to market solution. Once we launched, it didn't take that long. It only took about 2 months to get up and running with the UrbanForm team, and the months since have really been spent on quality assurance and working very intentionally and directly with the jurisdictions this serves. Before we really get into the nitty-gritty of like what this is, it's really important to know where we started. And my partner in all things within Yamhill County is Abisha Stone from SEDCOR, who I'm going to turn it over to give a little bit of our background of how we launched. Abisha?
Great, thank you, Nathan. Let's see, can we maybe progress the slide a little bit here?
Oh yeah, sorry, some logistics. Thanks, Amy. Everyone is going to be muted. To ask a question, please enter it into the chat. We are recording this presentation, so if you have colleagues, partners, or friends that would like to know what goes on here, we'll make that available afterward. And we'll send that out to all the registrants and obviously posting it on our regular channels. Boy. Oh, well, Abisha, I'll let you talk about the Regional Cooperation Award, okay?
Yeah,
Once we get
great.
All right.
Absolutely.
Here we go.
Thank you, Nate. So how this project came to be? Well, it was really born out of a collaboration between SEDCOR, the Newburgh Workforce Housing Consortium, and the Missing Middle Housing Fund. And it is an example of work that has been done over the last few years to identify opportunities to reduce the time and cost to build more workforce housing in Newburgh. So as Nathan mentioned, SEDCOR is the regional economic development organization serving Marion, Polk, and Yamhill counties. And the Newburgh Workforce Housing Consortium is a group of 6 private sector employers in partnership with the city of Newburgh. In 2022, this group got the attention and support of State Representative Anna Scharf, who helped us secure $3 million in state funding. And in early 2023, we jointly hosted the Let's Build Newburgh Housing Summit. I'm assuming some of you have either attended some of these summits or might be planning to in the future. Shortly after that summit, we established a workforce housing investment fund. So we've got a lot of acronyms here. We refer to the Newburgh Workforce Housing Consortium as the NWHC, and we refer to our workforce housing investment fund as the WIF, WHIF. So we decided that we wanted to look at improving zoning and developing processes as a priority that came out of the 2023 Let's Build event. After that event, the Missing Middle Housing Fund introduced UrbanForm and their capability to digitize zoning code to a mayor's working group that was launched at the Newburgh event. Mayor Bill Rossiker became quite, committed, excited about the opportunity of working with employers, working with private sector partners, engaging the state, working with innovators, identifying solutions to community-based problems, and being in a space where everyone was motivated to work together. So one of the groups that came out of that housing event was a mayoral working group. He wanted to collaborate amongst all 11 jurisdictions in the county. So that's 10 cities incorporated within Yamhill County and the county itself, to do something meaningful. And when Nate brought UrbanForm to the table and this mayoral group realized that they could speed up the process of applications, they could improve applications, they could optimize their own staff time by decreasing the instances of bad applications, that made them pretty excited. Many of our cities in Yamhill County do not have planners on staff. They actually utilize our Council of Governments for planning support. So many of them have very limited access to planners. And they thought, gosh, this is just an exciting thing. We can do this together. And we did. That platform is now available across all 11 jurisdictions within Yamhill County, including the cities of Amity, Carlton, Dayton, Dundee, Lafayette, McMinnville, Newburgh, Sheridan, Willamina, and Yamhill, and of course the county of Yamhill itself. As Nate mentioned, we did recently receive a collaboration award. So this is a regional collaboration award that is offered by the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, because of the fact that we had so many jurisdictions come together to do a project that moves the needle at a county level. We all know it's hard. I'm looking at the folks that are on this call. It's hard to get a project done. It's hard to get a project done with one partner. It's really hard to get a project done at times with multiple partners. I would have to say this was one of the swiftest projects that I have been engaged in with such a large number of partners, and also sort of the easiest entry to highest impact type projects. So we have found that developers throughout the region are really enjoying using this program, this platform. It has a very easy interface, which I know Quang will walk you through. But as somebody that doesn't do this work personally, I have used this system to play around with all kinds of things, including some things around industrial land. We're focused at this point on residential, but to be able to put in an address and pull up all of the code and ordinance that apply to that address, and use that knowledge to empower you to make a strong application is exciting, not just developers, but residents who might want to do home improvement projects across the region. With that all said, I know you want to see the product, so I'm going to turn it over to Quang so that he can walk you through. And of course, I'll be here at the end if you have any questions about how we engaged this public-private partnership.
Okay, well, hi, my name is Quang, and I'm the founder of UrbanForm. Just as background, so you know, kind of the perspective where I'm coming from, I spent a long career as an architect. And as an architect, what it came to be towards the end of my career that I was spending a lot of time on was, whenever a project walked in the door in our architecture office, either an owner, a client, or a developer, we would spend hours to weeks researching the zoning, right? And we would get confirmation from the city. We'd work with the city to come to a shared understanding of the, the zoning regulations that govern the site. We would then walk with the client or the developer through that research to kind of come to it. And then we, if the project, was deemed feasible, we would either begin design work or not. And I ended up spending so much of my time doing this towards the end of my career that I came to see access to zoning information as not only one of the biggest barriers to the quality of the individual building that I was working on, but to the quality of our cities and our environments as a whole. So I left professional practice to begin developing UrbanForm. And now I'm really excited to be working with jurisdictions themselves because, we see UrbanForm as a bridge to get all the partners who are working on the built environment together, developers, owners, architects, and the municipalities themselves to a shared understanding. And with the cooperation of municipalities, we're now building that bridge from both sides. So it means a better bridge, and we're really excited. So let me share with you what UrbanForm looks like and how it works. And I'm going to share my screen here now. And this is a website. So if you go to yam.urbanform.us, you will load this beautiful map. So anybody with a computer and an internet connection can have access to it. There's no software to download. You can access it on your phone even. But if you go here, you'll see a beautiful map with all 11 jurisdictions in Yamhill County. Now I'm going to just go into one. So if you know how to use Google Maps, you can use the site. You can either pan and zoom around, or you can search for an address here. So I'm going to type in an address that I've pre-selected in McMinnville. And once it zooms in, you can see that for this address, there's a beautiful site here. And immediately you can see all of the zoning information that pops up. You can see links to the city website itself. You can see information about the parcel here. And crucially here, some basic information about the zoning regulations that govern development. So I can see that there's no FAR limit that's specified for this lot. And there is a building height limit of 60 feet. Now, what I might want to do, of course, is check the uses that are available. And I can see here that residential uses, many of them are allowed as of right. I might want to check the unit minimums or maximums that govern this site. For instance, for here, I can see that there's a regulation that governs 4 units per 5,000 square feet. On this lot, that pencils out to 10 units that are allowed on this lot. And that's an amazing thing to know within seconds of coming to this site. So there's other information available too. Of course, understanding the coverage limits, the setbacks that may apply, as well as kind of seeing some preliminary setbacks applied on the map here itself. You can use this button to click to kind of verify with a satellite view where you are and the immediate surrounding area. And the other thing that I found extremely crucial as an architect and somebody who is working with the cities and developers and clients to come to an understanding quickly is knowing the source of all this information. So if there's a front yard that's 15 feet that's specified here, being able to see this source and to click on that link to be sent to that exact spot in the zoning code from McMinnville itself, as you can see here, was extremely crucial to save time to understand that everybody had a shared understanding of where that information was coming from. So the other thing that's really great too is that there's a lot of information here. The zoning code is very dense. I think as we saw in the McMinnville example, there are, oh gosh, where's the page? There's, over 340 pages in this code. So being able to take this information away succinctly and being able to share it with your team, your collaborators, the city itself, to be able to take notes, we've provided this ability to, with this button here on the lower right-hand corner of the screen, download a full report. So when you click this button, within a couple of seconds, you will have a report that you can see here in a PDF format of all the information that we have, including the clickable links for all of the source information for where the information came from, so that you can take it to the city, you can take it to your architect, or you can take it to whomever, to be able to understand all of this information documented, formatted for you with verifiable links to send you back to that shared authoritative source of understanding. Now, what's really great too is that, somebody can know the city of McMinnville really well, but what's really great about UrbanForm, and this really speaks to the cross-regional collaboration that this project represented, is that you can now go to any of the 11 jurisdictions. So if I was to go over here to Newburgh and choose a site, I can immediately jump jurisdictions and immediately have that same level of knowledge of that jurisdiction immediately at my fingertips. So again, here we're going to Newburgh. It's a completely different zoning code, a completely different city, a completely different set of regulations, but all of the same capabilities still remain with UrbanForm. I can go in, I can check my setbacks, know exactly where those setback information comes from, see the height limits, again, be able to click on a link, go directly to Newburgh's municipal zoning code in order to verify or understand more details. And again, of course, understand my context with the satellite view, go back, download a report, and immediately be able to assess a number of properties across multiple jurisdictions within seconds. And this ability, I believe, will help planners, municipalities, as well as the citizenry and the constituents and the people who contribute to the built environment, be able to understand the regulations, have greater access, and ultimately help create, the kind of environment that I believe we all are looking to contribute to. So this, I believe, kind of covers it with UrbanForm. And I'll toss it back to Nate at this point.
So Quang, I have a few questions. I'm going to impersonate some folks on the call here. We know that it took about 2+ months to actually set this up for all of the jurisdictions across Yamhill County. But what happened next? Once it was live, how did you interact with the communities themselves to answer their questions, get them comfy with the tool, and maybe find some things that were missing? Can you tell us about that process?
Yeah, I will say I was really, really happy to work with the planners and the administrators at each city. We basically came to them after the product was live so they could see it and touch it and interact with it. And we've had a great working relationship with many of the planners in each of the city. And I'll give you an example. We've been working closely with, for instance, McMinnville. And one of the things—
I see Evan from McMinnville on the call.
Yeah. Hey, Evan, you've been great. But one of the things I'll show that I think was really great that we worked on is that, we were working with them to kind of just make sure the information that they knew was crucial to development in their jurisdiction. And this is not something I could have known, without their cooperation, was to do things like this, to show the easements, and they have the GIS data sets there that were available, to show the easements that apply. Now, the other thing, of course, that's really crucial in Yamhill Valley is making sure that the floodplain data is known and the boundaries for the floodplain. So we were able to bring that information in as well. So you can see here that we have created, at the request of Evan and Andrew and Heather at McMinnville, to have the build envelopes respect the floodplains, right? So we did that, and to show the easements. So this was all work that we did in collaboration with those planners in McMinnville. And you can see here, when you go and you click in the zoning, you can see the easements that pop up. You can see the subdivisions that are here, and working with them, we were able to develop a link where if you click on it here, oops, we'll show this one where, let's see, where you can go and you can click on the links where it'll show the well, yes, we've been working on showing these plats. And the ones that I had found previously, the links were working properly, but working with them to make sure that all the information that they wanted to show and have available was there to add at their request. So this was a process that we've been working on, including this morning, working with the jurisdictions, getting the planners together to make sure that all the information that they want available is shown here. And we've been doing that for months now. And it's been a process that I've actually really enjoyed because like we said, we're trying to build this bridge and we're building it from both sides now. So that's been a process that I've really, really enjoyed.
Quang, one of the things that came up again and again in our quality assurance period is what happens if our zoning code changes? How does that work? Like, how do we actually make sure that the information on UrbanForm is the most current and that everyone has confidence in it?
Yeah, that's one of the questions that comes up frequently. And one of the benefits of having a system like this is that the changes, depending on the size of the change, can essentially happen almost instantaneously. Now, I believe it's Carlton and a couple of other municipalities had kind of made it be known that they are, in a process of revising some of their zoning codes. And they asked the question of how soon could it be reflected? And I let them know that, even this morning, we were making changes to the way the zoning information was presented at the request of the municipalities themselves. So for instance, things like whether or not certain use designations showed up as, allowed as of right, or were conditional or limited, or something that we can change and basically make live and happen instantaneously. Now, of course, this depends on the change. If they're completely revamping the zoning code and completely changing the zoning maps, that would take a bit longer, perhaps. But we have the ability with this to make changes almost instantaneously.
And does UrbanForm work with all the different types of zoning code hosting companies that all of the different municipalities and jurisdictions might work with?
Yeah, I think you saw already, for instance, with McMinnville, and you click on this link, and it links to their PDF that's hosted on their website. So where that is the case, you'll see we also include a handy, annotation here to show you exactly how to navigate to that PDF and where exactly in that information comes from. Whereas in Newburgh, when we go here, you'll see that the information comes in a hosted website, and it's hosted by Code Publishing. So no matter the format or media, and this applies to the zoning maps as well, whether or not they're, GIS zoning maps or whether or not they're old, typewritten, hand-drawn zoning maps, those can be digitized by us and also made available. So we can work with any kind of media, and we'll work with, on top of your existing systems.
I know that almost every zoning code I find online has a disclaimer or a caveat that says this is our best effort at reflecting what's online, but in order to be sure, you need to do X, Y, Z. Is the same true with UrbanForm?
The same is true, of course, of UrbanForm. We can't, of course, claim any better information than the city makes available. So there's a disclaimer at the end of all of our at the end of all of our reports, as well as in our terms of use, that lets it be known that this information is preliminary and not to be relied upon, but that the true adjudicator and arbiter of zoning information, of course, is the city itself.
Thanks. And then, is this free? Once it's in Yamhill County, can anybody use this anytime?
Grace to SEDCOR, Missing Middle Housing Fund, the Newburgh Workforce Housing Consortium, it is free. So anybody can go to this website and be able to use it and see all the information without payment, without submitting payment details, without logging in or anything. It's completely free and open.
And I'm going to get to some lessons learned in a second here. But one of the things that really struck me, because I'm not a planner, was when we actually got to talk to so many of the planners who described the time that it takes for them to put together a packet like the one that's in the yellow button down at the bottom. And they describe the amount of time they spend on a phone every day answering questions from folks who just say, I want to know what I can do on XYZ site. Can you maybe speak to that? Because you have been in those seats. You have been the architect trying to put together this type of a report. I think it's because we have so many planners on the call, I think it would be good to speak to that.
Yeah, well, my primary experience was as an architect, of course, developing almost exactly these kind of reports on behalf of my firm in service of our clients and developers. So I had my own long experience with, putting together this kind of information, but it was really rewarding, I think, for our entire team to hear when we sat down in front of some of the jurisdictions, the planners themselves saying, well, I spend half of my day fielding inquiries from brokers on the phone call about some basic information on certain parcels. Or more specifically, one planner told us that in a pre-application meeting, she would spend almost half a day to a full day preparing a report to go over with that pre-application meeting that UrbanForm essentially automated within seconds. So this is something that, our whole team at SEDCOR and Missing Middle Housing Fund was, I think, really, really elated to hear that our experience and our technology was able to immediately help some of the planners and the staffers at municipalities do some of the things that they know they spend a lot of time on their day doing.
Thanks, Quang. We're getting some really good questions now. Quang, can you re-give me control? Thank you. And I want to put up a couple lessons learned, and then we're going to get to Q&A. So a few things, and I'm sure everybody can see. This, if you don't know, it's kind of easy, not easy, but it's easy to understand that UrbanForm is a technology partner that has a product, and they're a for-profit company. Abisha and SEDCOR represent a regional economic development group that has many, many stakeholders they serve, but fundamentally driving traded sector growth. The Missing Middle Housing Fund's mission is to, and we are a statewide entity across all of Oregon, it's to address the housing under production crisis by finding innovations and reducing barriers to help housing go quicker and for less. And we believe very strongly that there's no silver bullet. So when you're looking at how to address a housing under production in a place like Yamhill County, we believe that it's really important to bring systems change to that geography. And having a cross-jurisdictional project works. It makes it more powerful across the region using an innovation like UrbanForm. So when you're embarking upon this work in whatever region you serve, we have found that there is no silver bullet. You're going to need many innovations, but start with some of the ones that represent quick wins. And the entire process from start to finish for UrbanForm was about 2.5 months. And now we've been in quality assurance with the different municipalities ever since. We can't do what we do as the Missing Middle Housing Fund, and I would venture to guess that it's pretty hard for UrbanForm to do what they do on behalf of jurisdictions without a trusted regional convener. For us, that was SEDCOR. SEDCOR already has the relationships with those communities, but crucially also with those businesses and with the different development interests in a given region. So they can bring the right people to the table and act as that trusted broker between a new idea that is an outside the box innovation, this statewide nonprofit, us, and then the people they serve. It also didn't hurt to have Mayor Bill organize all of the other mayors in Yamhill County. When we came out of the Let's Build Newburgh event, they knew they wanted to do a regional collaboration. They didn't know what, but they knew they wanted to collaborate regionally. And it was pretty huge that he was able to bring those folks together with the assistance of Abisha and SEDCOR. Getting the right people to the table early is pretty critical, because as I'm not sure if you caught, like, you could build this system if you had the right resources with minimal input from the municipalities. As long as it's publicly available data, UrbanForm can get a pretty long way with setting the system up. The problem is nobody would use it and nobody would trust it. And so you have to have the right community partners and the right representatives from your jurisdictions, whether that's a regional planner, whether that's a city planner. They need to be engaged early and often. We have found that it's hard to get multiple cities to agree to do anything together when there's a dollar cost attached to it. And we'll go into the costs in a minute. So having a financial catalyst to kick the work off, in this case, it was the fund that SEDCOR had raised with the Newburgh Workforce Housing Consortium. To have that funding source to kick the work off is pretty critical. It's a lot easier for jurisdictions to say, what is this? Do we like it? Do we believe in it? Do we trust it? Does it meet our needs? If there's something up and running that they can touch, that they can comment on, that they can experience in real time. So you need a financial catalyst at the beginning, because again, it's hard to get each jurisdiction, which has potentially radically different budget cycles and budget processes, to align at a certain date. And then the QA process is critical. It's how you find what's missing. It's how you know what's really important to the different jurisdictions. It's how you build trust and answer questions with each of the planning crews and development crews across your region or your city. That is the part of the process that does take some significant time, and it takes a lot of relationship building. So starting with a regional partner like SEDCOR or a regional convener like Mayor Bill Rossiter is important, because those relationships essentially enable you to test out innovation, especially technology, in your cities. We found that it's just more powerful the more folks you have. So that's a pretty big commitment for us. We're now going to do some Q&A, so I'm going to take this screen down, because I already saw we've got some really good questions on there. The first one was about Willamina. Quang, can you see that one on the chat?
Yeah, hi, Michelle. Yeah, I think this, if I understand it correctly, it's about when the zoning code changes, how do the links kind of update? And if the development code for Willamina changes, then how does our website change as well? Well, the way we see UrbanForm is it's a portal. It's an efficient portal to the sources of authority. So for us, if that changes, our links basically point to the Willamina development code. If the links change and they point to something different, then we can update those. Our goal, of course, is always to just make it easier to get to the source of truth. So as long as the website is available there with the correct information, then we will link to it and therefore provide that efficient portal to the source of truth. So Michelle, I hope I'm answering your question correctly with that.
Thanks, Quang. And just a reminder for everyone, if you've got a question, please put it in the chat and we will keep going back to those. Thank you from Michelle. We've got two questions about cost. Quang, I know you and I have been thinking a lot about ways to standardize this. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, when we first started this, we actually had a fairly complex kind of formula that had to do with size of the zoning code, number of parcels, amount of hours for coordination, meetings allotted and things. And we actually kind of came to this this point where we actually realized there was a rule of thumb that kind of quite gracefully matched all this complicated formulas. But basically, we knew that there was a certain amount that it would take to just stand up the city. Then there was a cost that was for Q&A, and then of course maintenance costs that would go afterwards. So do you think it's appropriate to go into the actual amounts that we were talking about?
I mean, I think with the caveat that these could change as we learn more, there's I mean, I don't know. I think these folks would benefit from knowing.
Yeah, I mean, there is, of course, a little bit of flexibility with this. When we were, just for frame of reference, there was 11 jurisdictions in Yamhill County, 41,000 parcels total. What we found that kind of adequately captured the cost was a certain dollar amount to set up the jurisdiction, intake all of the data, process the zoning code. That was about $5,000 a jurisdiction. And then we had a QA process that basically penciled out to, of course, the larger cities have slightly more complex zoning codes, larger planning staffs, a little bit more development concerns. So it made sense to kind of attribute QA costs slightly greater to those larger jurisdictions. We were thinking, or we found it was about $2 a parcel for the QA process for the entire for any jurisdiction, and then ongoing maintenance costs of $1 a parcel. So that was a really easy way for us to kind of understand the cost of it. It was about $5,000 to set up the jurisdiction and get it live, $2 per parcel to go through the QA process and a several months long process, and then $1 per parcel per year ongoing for maintenance.
Now, since Amy and I work for the Missing Middle Housing Fund, and our job is to help small companies that are innovating scale, I would say that could change, but for now, that's a really elegant and easy way to sort of understand about how much it takes to do. We also found, and this I think was Abisha's idea, so thank you, Abisha. We found that if we could bundle the first year's worth of maintenance, it took down a hurdle that was existing for a lot of the jurisdictions and municipalities. They were, how do we know we want to pay for the first year of maintenance until we know if this is a useful thing? So that's why one of those lessons learned was, if you can come with a catalytic financial backer or source to fuel your project, it's advantageous to bundle the first year of maintenance into that setup cost, because that de-risks it for each of your cities, and enables them to really use it and find whether or not it provides a value for them. So that's a little bit about the cost. Okay, I think we just got through all the questions we've got. Are there other questions from the crowd? Okay, well, I'll ask one last question. And if I don't see any other ones come in, then we'll go to just how you find this information on a go-forward basis, and we'll end there. So I'd like to just give a moment to be able for Abisha, Quang, and Amy, if she'd like, to be able to say what their big takeaways from this process were, or a takeaway. And I'll start, because when we began, we had a lot of confidence in the product. We, as the Missing Middle Housing Fund, knew the power of UrbanForm, but we didn't know how it would land with the various jurisdictions. And some people are skeptical of the power of the tool, which Quang often likens to Google Maps. You know, if Google Maps went away tomorrow, you still have your roads, you still have paper maps. There's still ways to navigate your communities. It's just not at your fingertips instantly from anywhere in the world. So we learned a lot about what this would mean for different municipalities. The big takeaway for me is that Ryan is a guy that works with Amy and I at the Missing Middle Housing Fund, and he runs a lot of our real estate development efforts. And he was very frustrated trying to look at all of these different developable sites in Yamhill County on behalf of the Newburgh Workforce Housing Consortium. And this is like our coworker who we see every day, who's met Quang, I don't know, 100 times. And we said, Ryan, have you just used UrbanForm? Have you tried to use that to understand all the zoning information for each site? And he was like, no. We're like, well, do that. That's what it's for. And in our own office, Ryan's like light bulb went off, and now he uses it constantly. He uses it every single day because at his fingertips, he can pull up the zoning information for any parcel that we are looking at with our development partners in Yamhill County. So it can be a little moment of like, just go try it. Just go try it. And once you start, it's a thing that can provide incredible value. It was humorous to me that within our own team, we needed to poke them to start doing it. Abisha, Quang, or Amy, do you have a reflection from this process?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in. Thanks, Nate. So, pretty early on in this work, so I've been working with the Newburgh Workforce Housing Consortium since 2019. So again, this conversations were brought to us by employers pre-pandemic, right? Saying, hey, Abisha, one of the biggest issues that we have is securing employment for lack of affordable housing in our community in the city of Newburgh. And as I started having the conversation with other employers, they said, yes, us too. Yes, us too. Can we band together and figure something out? I like to tell people SEDCOR is not a housing organization, right? The Missing Middle Housing Fund is, SEDCOR is not. We support traded sector business development in our 3-county region. But again, the reason we're at the table is because this is an employer issue, but it's a community-based issue. So I think what has occurred to me in this process is that in this example, these 6 employers came together, continued to convene, tried to understand what are the issues around affordability for housing construction. They, worked to partner with the state. They worked to partner with the city. They spent a lot of time just learning, trying to understand it, and then came to the reality that they really didn't know how to do it any better than developers did, without somehow implementing some form of innovation. And they knew that they weren't the right partners to do that either, right? We had folks that take care of your sick, folks that educate your children, company that makes dental equipment as a part of the consortium members saying, how do we move the needle forward? However, once innovation entered the conversation, once the concept of doing something differently hit the table, they got extremely excited because that's definitely something businesses understand. And then they grew to understand as well that the state has not historically invested in innovation in construction or housing development. They invest in all kinds of industries, as we all know, but have not invested in that space. So when this consortium of mayors came together and city managers and leaders and said, yeah, we like the idea of innovation as well. Innovating around something that we actually have control and authority over, but we don't quite know how to do better than we currently are. Like maybe another tool would be helpful. It got these employers even more excited. So I think it was just a reminder to me that public-private partnerships have to be that. They have to be partnerships between the public and private entities. And that doesn't just mean coming to the table and joining a meeting. It means being brave together. It means putting your money where your mouth is. It means trying something new. It means sometimes doing something that's a little bit uncomfortable. And in bravery, I say we have to be brave because sometimes we try something and we fail, but we're going to learn from it. And we're going to develop trust amongst the group because we tried something together. So all that to say, it's the reminder. Public-private partnerships need both parties to show up, to act like trusted, brave, engaged partners with each other. And then we can get a very large group to go far very quickly with each other when those things come together.
Thanks, Abisha. Quang and Amy, we'll come back to you in a second, but we've got a question from Carla out in Boardman. What if your code's really out of date? Do you update it first, or would it matter?
May I take this one? Yeah, so to answer your question, Carla, I actually think it doesn't matter. What UrbanForm does, a lot of the work of UrbanForm is kind of just getting the authoritative sources of information together, putting that all up there. And then once it's up there, it's actually really easy to tweak and adjust and make refinements from that point on. So what UrbanForm does is it basically kind of addresses, or it kind of points to the state of your existing zoning code. It points to the regulations that apply right now. If they change, that can happen, almost instantaneously as well. And it's quite easy to do it. So I would say you don't need to update first. I would actually just get the product up and running. And then you can actually, and I think this benefit would really help planners to see your changes and visualize them with UrbanForm almost instantaneously. And that could be a really big benefit as well. So I hope that answers your question, Carla. I'm going to piggyback now off of Abisha and say that the lesson learned for me too was again around what she was kind of saying. It's about the community. That's coming together of like we said at the beginning of this webinar, of the public, the private, and the nonprofit together to make this happen was really something special, and more special than I perhaps kind of imagined at the beginning. In my experience as an architect, there was a little bit of, I would say, an antagonistic relationship between the building departments, the architects, and the developers a little bit. There was kind of like this, kind of odd standoff between the parties sometimes. But what we really start to see with UrbanForm, I believe, is that everybody kind of coming together to work towards solutions. So that meant, the municipalities, developer interests and housing interests, as well as, private sector and nonprofits, working towards this goal of housing and addressing problems. So to me, that's a really big issue, really big kind of takeaway, is that this really represented what felt like a new kind of collaboration partnership between different constituencies in the environment and in our communities. So to me, that was, one of the most important things, is we're starting to see that and realize that work with the work that Abisha and Nathan and Amy have been doing. So I'm really happy about that. That, like I said, I had that, that analogy of a bridge, but I really think that's true. We're starting to kind of get everybody together at the table a little bit better with this kind of a project.
Question from Nicole from Coos Bay. I understand this allows us to add all of our city's specific layers, incentives, urban renewal, et cetera. I think you spoke to floodplain earlier as an example. Can you speak to how that's happened, I guess, in Yamhill County, and if it's possible?
Yeah, totally possible. And in fact, I was showing you when I went to McMinnville and we clicked on that one link and it was broken. I was actually working with Evan and Andrew on updating those things to get, that information that they wanted up, and it hadn't been previously publicly available before. So we are continuing to add in the different overlays that each of the jurisdictions want to make available. There's a lot of them. I think either McMinnville or Newburgh has the most, at like 17 overlays. I'm getting them mixed up at the moment, but yeah, totally. That's one of the big benefits of UrbanForm, is it doesn't just convey the basic zoning information, but it layers in all of the overlays, special districts, planned unit developments, any of those things, and it reflects them all.
And I will say, because I've been in so many of the QA meetings, sometimes those aren't readily obvious online. They're not readily included in the zoning code or adjacent or easy to find. And so the QA process has really unearthed and surfaced some of those layers that are important to the planners and different folks that actually work in the city. And without their involvement, what you see online would have been more restricted, more bare bones. And so by having the close engagement of the city planning staff or the planners that work on behalf of those cities, you can just enhance the experience for anyone using the tool. Okay, I think I haven't seen any questions come in. Amy, do you have a takeaway you want to share? You're often the silent partner that does so much of the organization for these types of events, but you too have been in so many of these meetings.
Well,
Anything?
you guys, all three of you have already stolen a little bit of my thunder in regards to the level of partnership and the importance of the QA process. I think that we've seen just the ability for people to adopt UrbanForm in Yamhill County is largely dependent on their ability to understand it and make sure that it works for them specifically. And I know the jurisdictions have done a great job of working with Quang and us, making sure that we hear their feedback and that we develop a tool that they can use for them, so that it's not just going to sit on a website, that it's going to get used. So thanks to everyone for that.
Thanks, Amy. Well, thanks everyone for being here and being part of the conversation. You can go check out the tool right now at yam.urbanform.us. You can also see a few other jurisdictions on there. You check out our case study at missingmiddlehousing.fund. Share this recording of this presentation widely. It will be, as we said earlier, up on all of our communication channels. Follow us for check out the next innovation down the pike. As much as I love Quang and UrbanForm, they're not the only ones innovating. And so there are a lot of other ways to bring innovation and outside the box thinking to your communities. If you have questions, please reach out. We would love to hear from you. We would love to see if we can help, but also just introduce you to the really wonderful people in our network. As Abisha knows, a core value of the Missing Middle Housing Fund is gratitude. And I would be remiss if I didn't use this opportunity to say thank you to Quang, Amy, and Abisha for making this project possible. It really is a all boats rise on the same tide work that we do together. And so I'm very, very grateful for your continued energy, passion, wisdom, and experience. That's it. So we're going to close up shop. Come find us, ask as many questions as you need to. And thank you so much for joining this webinar today.